Okay. Just a moment, and live stream should be going here in about 30 seconds. There we are. We're live.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. My name is Sydney Jackson. I am the president of the Creve Coeur Township Democratic Club. Here with us, we have Harvey Ferdman, who is the president of the Maryland Heights Township Democratic Club. And I see a couple of people are still trickling in, but as always with our meetings, I guess we'll go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. If it's okay, I guess I'll go ahead and lead us in that just so we can get through it. So if you all want to join me for that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, awesome. And then, as always, we want to make sure that we recognize any elected officials that are on the call with us this evening. I see a couple, so just feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself. And then we'll start with elected officials first, and then we'll have a little portion for candidates after.
Hi, everyone. It's Paula Brown, State Rep for District 70, soon to be District 87.
Awesome. Thanks for being here with us, Paula.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Councilwoman Nicole Greer from the city of Freeport.
We're Dale and Dave Steinberg, the committee people from Maryland Heights Township.
Okay, awesome. I think that is everyone that I see for this evening. And now I guess we can go ahead and move forward to candidates. If we have any candidates that are here with us that would like to give us a little 2-minute spiel about their campaign. Yeah, go ahead, Jake.
Hi, Sydney. Hi, Harvey. Thank you for having me. Good to see you both. So I am here to represent the Lucas Kunce campaign for U.S. Senate. I was here last month, so I'm basically here to remind you that there is a Senate candidate running a campaign built to win. I don't know if you saw the most recent advertisement by Eric Greitens that was literally so offensive and violent that it was taken down by several social media sites. We'd really like to beat this guy. And so we are running a campaign. We've outraised the entire field, Democrat and Republican. We're ready to go up against the big money, the big corporate interests. Lucas Kunce is going to be a warrior for working people in the Senate. The Senate is a big problem. We're 2 votes away from big legislation, such as climate change legislation and protecting Roe v. Wade by codifying it into law. So things like that, if you're interested in getting things like that done, I'd like your support for Lucas Kunce. I'm going to leave info in the chat. You can get in touch with me anytime. I'd love to hear from you folks. But yeah, we'll be around. We're going to be at the St. Louis Pride Parade this coming weekend. So come see us there. If you're interested in volunteering, we'd love to have you marching with us. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys, and vote for Lucas.
Thank you, Jake. Do we have any other candidates or folks representing candidates this evening with us? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and move into introducing our speaker for this evening. So our speaker tonight is going to be Rosetta Okeson. So Rosetta is the founder of Myers Okeson Political Consulting. So driven to action by the 2016 presidential election, Rosetta developed her own kind of consulting firm, one that would only work for clients and causes who shared her vision for a more equitable tomorrow. That firm, Myers Okeson Political Consulting, has grown in the space of grown in the space of 4 years from a 2-person operation working out of her apartment dining room to a full-service consulting group, one which represents clients at every level of elected office and employs a staff of dozens. Over the course of the past 3 cycles, only 5 seats in the Missouri State House have flipped from red to blue, and Rosetta's team was responsible for 3 of them. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to Rosetta.
Sydney, thank you so much. And thank you all for having me here tonight. I am going to be sharing a slide deck and a screen to keep us on track and to guide this conversation that we're planning to have tonight. Would love some thumbs up from folks. If you can see the screen and everything there, just to make sure all technology is working. Perfect. As Sydney said, my name is Rosetta Okeson. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I love fighting for Democrats. That's hard to do in Missouri. That is a tough pill to swallow from time to time, but we're here and we are making a difference. So tonight we're going to have a great conversation about why this work is important. Sydney's told you a little bit about my bio, my background. The only thing I'll add is that I've been working on campaigns since I was 8. My grandparents knocked doors for Kathleen Kelly Burkett when she sat on the county council and ran her races. I see some heads nodding, so I know people know Kathleen. She was a bulldog and a fighter, and I spent a lot of my childhood with her family. Her dad used to be the mayor of Overland, and so there's just a long history of standing up for what we believe in and fighting for working class people. And so I'm grateful to have that opportunity to do that, to lead my team here at Mo Political in doing that work. Over the last 5.5 years, we have been able to have over 50 interns and fellows come through our doors with our goal and our task of making sure that we grow the next group of people that are going to do this work. Because this is sometimes it feels like a young person's game with all the door knocking and the movement. And so we need to make sure that we have the next group of people. So when we're ready to give our time with phone banks or write checks or support candidates in different ways, there's still somebody out there that's doing this important work. So grateful to be chatting with you all this evening. And if you have questions as we go through, I encourage folks to raise hands and or use the chat. This is meant for you all tonight. I know how to do this work. I want you all to take away something from this. So please don't be shy about asking questions. I will move through the slide deck quickly because again, this is about you. But I'll keep my eye on the chat and we'll go from there. I would just ask that folks be respectful in our conversation that we're going to have today. One, this is being live streamed, so you're going to be on the internet, which means it's forever. So if you're eating dinner, that's fine. Maybe you want to turn your camera off, or maybe you want to mute yourself. Or like me, you want to turn your phone off so it doesn't just ring like it just did right now. So I encourage folks to do the same as we chat today. I ask you to be present here and participate by asking questions. We really just want you to be engaged. I'm going to take one moment to pause and turn off my phone so we don't have any more interruptions. I thought no one would be looking for me. I was wrong. Okay, here we go. What we're going to cover this evening is why campaigns need volunteers, why people like you are the most important part of being successful on campaigns. We're going to cover best practices for recruiting and growing your organization. You all have combined your township organizations to have a conversation like this tonight. How you grow and some of these skills that we will talk about today will also be helpful to your organizations growing and having more people in attendance and being active. And then we'll talk a little bit about some recruitment strategies and ways that we can keep people engaged and how we can grow our volunteers to take on some of those other leadership roles. So I'm just going to ask, we're going to start with an icebreaker because I love icebreakers and I love getting to know people. It's the best part of doing this work. I would love for you all to share out, if you want to drop in the chat, some of your first volunteer experiences and what that was like. So I will share as people are chatting. I told you all about Kathleen Kelly Burkett. That was more of a voluntold situation since I was 8. But my job back in the day was taking the thank you notes from people that donated to the campaign or volunteered on the campaign to the post office up the street from the campaign office. So I got to take the big stack. I got to go and deliver them. And that was my first job, my first role on a campaign. And it made me feel important because I was in charge of something. So would love for you all to just share out or drop in the chat experiences that you might have had, or feel free to raise your hand if you want to do that verbally, and we'll call on one to two people right here so we can keep our momentum tonight. Love it. Alan, thank you so much. Dropping lit for my dad for a mayoral race. That is amazing in your neighborhood. Talking to your neighbors and getting that information is so important. Mark, I see working door to door for George McGovern. That is awesome. And any other folks want to share out? Knocking doors for Obama. Okay, great. All right, Sydney, a parade for Jay Nixon. We got some stories in here. I love this. Working the polls for my neighbor when I was 10, Harvey, amazing. They got us young, and so now we're in forever. That's how this works. Lit drop for JFK. That is very cool. So, these stories are things that people remember, right? The way that we can make sure that volunteers are engaged is to create opportunities for them to feel a part of the larger campaign. It's hard to do that if your campaign is not outward facing, or you all aren't doing events, or you haven't organized yourself in that way. So it's really important to grow those folks so that you have those opportunities to get volunteers to be involved and to be engaged. I'm going to talk a little bit about why you need volunteers. The thing that I tell my candidates is that we don't have the time, and we never have enough money, and we never have enough people, right? So in order to talk to as many voters and maximize the message of a campaign, you need someone to help you with that project, right? And getting those messages to people. The phases of a campaign, and I have this up here, but I'll just do a quick refresher for folks. The campaign kicks off and it starts. I'm sure folks on this Zoom have been a part of campaign kickoffs or conversations that have happened. Once you launch, it's just a big thing where you're building out. You're finding people that are gonna help you knock doors. You're finding people that are gonna help you design your website, or other pieces that might be happening on that campaign. You're building that infrastructure. And so you see that on the screen down at the bottom. We're really building that. Then we move into persuasion, right? We're having conversations with people. We're talking to folks that might be independent voters, and we're asking them to support our Democratic candidate, or we're asking them to support a candidate whose values most align with us if it's a primary. You're persuading people. You're having those conversations. And then we get ready for GOTV. And I'm going to spell that out because sometimes we get into the weeds when it comes to these political conversations. GOTV stands for get out the vote, right? So you're following up with people that you've had conversations with, and you're asking them to circle back and be a part of this experience with you and to confirm that they're really in, right? We don't want squishy folks to get to the polls or think that their vote doesn't matter. And so many people think that their vote does not matter because no one has followed up. It's a check system. It's a buddy system. We build infrastructure again at that point, right? We need as many bodies as possible to get back to all those voters that we've been reaching out to. And sometimes districts are so big or they're statewide that you need a lot of hands to be able to tackle whatever that goal might be. Election day is kind of a finale in that space. Poll workers, volunteers, people that can drive people to the polls are often roles that volunteers and people can be a part of. It just depends on the campaign and their structure. So campaigns obviously need volunteers. They need people like you to give your time and your energy to be able to do that. It's not a one-person show. I have run a lot of campaigns. I've been a part of a lot of campaigns, and the best happy medium that you can have is a core group of people that are paid folks that work on the campaign and do that work every day, and volunteers who've got time and energy to give that are happy to come back and happy to recruit other people and are ready to take a leadership role. So you want to talk to as many people as possible to get them to be engaged and to ask them to join you. Volunteers are the reason that campaigns win. The messenger matters as much as the message itself. If you are talking to friends and family or people that are in your network, your rapport and what they think of you and the conversations that you all have will lead to them being more engaged or more likely to be engaged in a campaign. Volunteers can manage other volunteers. Everyone here has the ability to manage a group of volunteers and organize some people. That's not just left to the campaign. We need volunteers that are willing to take that piece too. And then volunteers can work in a variety of roles that happen on a campaign. I'd love for folks to share out what are some roles that volunteers could be a part of just in the chat, because this is interactive and we want people to be engaged. So what are some ways that folks can support a campaign? Would love for you to just drop that in the chat. I see knock doors. I see canvassing. Those are my favorite. I'm a little bit biased though. I believe in door knocking. We know it matters. What are other ways that people can give their time to a campaign? There are folks that can write postcards. If your campaign has a postcard program, that's something that you can do. Registering voters is something that should be happening all the time. Phone banking is actually the number 2 most effective way to move a voter or to get someone to be engaged. Delivering signs, sharing information and motivating people, talking to your neighbor. These are all great ways that folks can be engaged. And these are things that you all can be doing now for candidates that you're excited about. I definitely encourage people, especially volunteers, find candidates that make you feel something, right? You want to be a part of their campaign because they're organized or because they share the same values that you might have, or they have a similar story of something not so great happening, and that's their motivation for running, right? You want to find those opportunities to connect with someone on a deeper level because it makes you feel something. It makes you feel compelled to continue coming back and doing that work, because door knocking is not easy, especially when it's 100 degrees outside, right? But it's a little bit easier if you believe in the candidate, if you think they have an opportunity to do it, if you're having good conversations with folks at the doors. I would compare it to, and you'll have to brace yourself for a golf reference. I am an amateur, very, very amateur golfer, mostly in off season, which means I don't get to play when it's actually warm outside. But every time I go out and play, I have one hit that's like, I got to come back and do this, right? And so when you're a volunteer, you want one opportunity, one story, one conversation that happens that's going to keep you drawn back in to really participating and being a part of that conversation. So these are the top 3 ways that you can actually support a campaign. And this is not just bias, this is science-based. This is based on campaign success and the perfect situation for voters to really be moved. Canvassing is the number 1 way to move voters, okay? The number 1 way. There's no replacement for canvassing. There's no better way to move people and persuade them than by having a story, than by sharing with them, and by meeting voters where they are. The number 2 way to reach out to folks is by phone banking, reaching them on the phone, having a conversation, leaving it open-ended, making sure that if the campaign allows, you're leaving a message so they hear that candidate's name so they can start to recognize that person's name. Hosting an event is the 3rd way that you can be supportive. Now that could be a fundraising event, that could be a meet and greet, that could be inviting them to come to your neighborhood association meeting to see some people there. That could look like launching a canvas from your home, right? It could be any of those combination of items, but you as a person that knows other people, that has those relationships, inviting a candidate into that space allows them to meet some people that may not be in their wheelhouse, right? It allows them to grow the people that they know because they have you in a spot where you are identifying the folks that might be there and they're able to show up and come and be engaged. I think I saw a couple of questions in the chat, so I'm going to pause real quick so I can answer them. I see donating here. Yes, donating and poll working are other ways that people can absolutely be engaged. I think Mark has a question. How do you expect that pandemic and pandemic memory will affect door to door? I'm so glad that you asked that. So it was a very difficult decision that a lot of folks had to make in 2020 to decide whether they were going to door knock or not. I have a Post-it sitting still on my screen that I'll show you all, and it just says COVID conscious canvassing. We did this. We went back on the door. Our campaigns and our candidates in 2020, all of the ones that knocked doors were ones that were able to be successful in our 2020 election cycle, which was really hard for Democrats in Missouri. What we found is that there was a way to adjust and having conversations with people. We had our canvassers volunteered and paid, wear masks. We had them knock on the door and stick a piece of literature in the door. And then we had them back up 10 feet. And what happened more chances than not was that people were, number one, they were at home, right? Because everybody was at home in 2020. We had a 42% contact rate, which will likely never happen again in my career. And people came to the door and they had a conversation for a couple reasons. One, they were sick of talking to the people that they live with because that's all they had to talk to during the pandemic. Two, someone was there and was asking them what they needed. And that takes people aback. People are not expecting them. They're not expecting someone to ask that open-ended question and for you to wait for a response. And so what we had was folks who aren't normally engaged, who aren't normally paying attention, watching the news more frequently, listening to the radio more frequently, spending more time at home more frequently. And so I think if you are smart about the ways that you decide to get people out, you can keep people safe. We didn't have any issues keeping folks safe. We started door knocking June 25th of 2020, and we knocked through the rest of the year using those protocols. We asked people to ride in vehicles separately unless they were in the same home. We asked people to wash their hands. We provided masks and hand sanitizer. We launched from outside instead of being inside, and we spaced out. And using those same protocols that have kept many people safe during this pandemic was something that worked really well for us. And we were able to have some success there. Did I see another question? Let me look. Oh, I'm a federal employee with Hatch Act limitations. Is there any way that I can volunteer and not run afoul of the act? So that's a really great question, and that's a really tough spot to be in. The best thing that you can do is to recruit other people to go and do projects that you can't necessarily do. So folks and family members who maybe don't work with you, if that is a situation, I would encourage you to find family members or other folks that are in your network and ask them to go on your behalf. I've had a lot of retired people that have left roles with the federal government that are now giving their time to campaigns and candidates because they didn't have that opportunity before. But in the interim, find opportunities to ask people to be a part of these campaigns. Find a candidate that you like and send it to someone. Hey, I don't know if you're paying attention to this race. I'm watching this. What do you think of them? It can be as easy as opening up a conversation just like that. So I want to talk about some ways that we can direct voter contact and connect with volunteers. It's really important to have someone that is in charge of that. So what we try to do on the campaigns that I work on is have someone that is our volunteer coordinator or is our volunteer person that is reaching out to people. We got to call people a lot of times. You got to check in with them. You got to find the best medium, right? I've got a handful of volunteers who are awesome, and they're really great at texting. They don't want me to call them in the middle of the day, right? So I write that in our notes so we can be smart about the ways to interact with them. I have some folks that don't have email. So me sending an email or they don't check their email very often means that I need to pick up the phone and I need to call them, right? You have to find the best way to connect with people. And so part of talking to volunteers is understanding how they want to be engaged and what's the best way for us to follow up and get in touch with them. Those confirmation calls of when you're showing up, when the canvassing event is going to be, or when the phone banking event is going to be, is really important. And then it's important for you to share out what the goals are for the campaign to your volunteers. Let them be bought into it. You should know, the campaign should know their win number. They should know how many voters they need to talk to. They should know what our goals are for the day when you're going out. Make sure you ask those questions so that you know what we're working towards, and so you can be a part of that solution for the campaign. I'm gonna talk a little bit about recruiting volunteers and kind of growing the people that are there. The core traits of a volunteer that make it most successful is that they have availability, is that they're reliable, and that they are excited to work on the campaign, right? So it's really important that they know the details of how to be engaged and why the campaign has a plan to success and what the clear blue sky looks like for them to be able to win. So you want to make sure that these folks have these details. Not everybody's going to have that every season, right? I have a really busy season in off-cycle election years in April because municipal elections are happening. So I'm not a great volunteer recruit in April of an odd number year, but in May, I'm open. I have time. I have to be able to do that. So asking those questions and building those relationships with your volunteers and knowing them a little bit better will allow you to figure out what's the best way to plug them in to the projects that you're working on. I'm going to show you all on the screen the goal that we have here. The goal for recruiting for your organizations or recruiting for a candidate starts with this model that we have here. So what we have in the middle is someone who's a volunteer team leader, right? For purposes here, I'll use you, Harvey, as the person that's in that middle, right? Harvey, you know a bunch of different people, right? You have conversations and relationships with a bunch of other people. You know the folks that are the movers and the shakers and the folks that are going to follow up with folks, right? You're finding all these different captains, right? You're going to find yourself 4 captains, 4 people that you have a relationship with that know you really well. And we're going to ask them to do the same thing and recruit those people. The best way to grow your organization or to support a campaign is to use this model and find one person that's going to be able to do that and have it grow outwards. This structure allows for good management of volunteers and projects, and the best campaigns have this kind of structure set up already. Here are some, guiding questions for recruitment. What does the campaign need? How can I be helpful to the campaign? What are the responsibilities? And what are the skills that I might need to have, right? Maybe it's you're delivering signs. So if you don't have a car, maybe you're not the right person for that job, right? Or if you are great at data entry and you're good with a spreadsheet, maybe that's a skill that you offer up to the campaign as a way to be engaged. But first you have to identify and know what those needs are. And if you reach out to the folks that you know on the campaign that you're excited about, asking how you can support them and then listening to those tactics and figuring out where your skills fit in is the best solution for you to be able to be engaged. Volunteers that you can reach out to and that you can grow are folks that you know. So we've talked a little bit about this. I won't spend too much time on the slide, but people that you went to school with, or your neighbors, or folks that are at your church that you're involved with, or your siblings. If you're like me, I have a few siblings. I like to voluntold them into a few things, right? That's how that works. So you want to engage and grow the folks that are there. But it helps if you've got that personal connection and they know you a little bit. Other sources where you can grow volunteers and find other people to help: your contact list, your email list. Social media is very popular: LinkedIn, Facebook. There's a lot of different tools where you can use that to help find other people to be supportive. If you've got a physical address book, that's a great place to find some folks. Again, alumni groups of places where you maybe went to school, or boards or professional groups that you might be involved in are great ways to find other people that might have similar interests. Neighborhood directories are really helpful. And then friends, family, spouse, contact, etc. These are all great ways to grow and get other people to be engaged in whatever you are doing to support Democrats to win this year. You want to make sure that you as a volunteer and the volunteers that you might recruit are reflective of the communities. It's important to reach out to local universities. Often students aren't plugged in and don't know a place to get plugged in or are learning the lay of the land. So we want to recruit and ask them to be engaged. We want to build partnerships with other organizations. You all built a partnership by having these joint meetings together, right? How else can you all do that in your networks and other Democratic organizations and groups to make sure that you all are doing some of the same things and kind of moving in that same direction? You want to make sure that you attend important community events. It's parade season right now, right? That's a great place to recruit and tell people about your group. It's a great way to meet new folks. It's a great way to say hello and to build a authentic relationship with someone. And then also just volunteer recruitment. If your organization has an ability or a database where they're storing everything, make sure we're refreshing that and finding opportunities to kind of grow the folks that might be there. Like I said, there are many roles that you can fill on a campaign where you can be supportive. Here are a few examples. We talked about data management. People could help with call time. That's where candidates dial for dollars and ask for money from folks. You could be a photographer. If you enjoy taking photos and you want to be helpful to a campaign, taking photos that they'd be able to share on their website or share out and giving those to the campaign is a great resource and a great way to be supportive. And you could ask to be a yard sign captain. If the campaign is buying yard signs and will need help delivering them, that's another opportunity that you could use to be engaged. Again, you want to make sure community events that you are taking opportunities to talk to folks that might not be politically engaged. Our job as folks that are a part of this, that are a little bit more plugged in than maybe what I would refer to as regular folks, is to make sure that they know that there are people that are welcoming there, right? Your organization is not going to grow if folks don't get an invitation, if they don't know when you're meeting, if they don't know, if it's not accessible, right? So you want to make sure that you've got all those details and you're finding opportunities to bring new people into that. And then the recruitment ask. You want to make sure that you ask folks a hard ask. And what I mean by that is, don't ask, hey, Sydney, could you join me sometime to canvass for this candidate that I'm helping? It's, hey, Sydney, can you join me on Saturday at 10? I'd love for you to go knock doors with me, right? There's a difference between the two of those. So knowing those details, knowing when you're going out, knowing your schedule, and then making that very specific ask of someone will yield a much better result. I'm going to pause and see if folks have questions, because that was a lot of info and this is about you and your questions being answered. So we'll stop there. I only have a few more slides to go after this. Feel free to raise your hand or take yourself off mute if you want to ask questions. We're all friends here. Okay, go for it.
I think it's also important to point out that it is very useful to not just support a candidate for an office, but also to support an organization that has a specific democratic type agenda. Like I do volunteer work, especially phone banking for Pro-Choice Missouri. And so they do a Zoom meeting where we talk about the phone calls we're going to be making, and then they set it up, they send me something, and it's so easy. I phone bank from my home, and it is so simple. I don't have to worry about going out. I have given up the canvassing because I'm 74 years old and my knees have just said no. But there are many organizations. The Sierra Club would love people who care about the environment to work with them on any of these things you're talking about. So it's important to work for candidates, yes, but it's also important to work for an issue.
Awesome. Ms. Lois, thank you for sharing that. You have earned your ability to not allow your knees to fight you later on. I support that. But exactly what Lois said, you heard her share it out. It was made easy for her. It was accessible. It was something that she could do with community, right? That is the perfect situation for folks to be engaged and to have conversation and to want to come back, right? So much that she shared that with all of you here, where she's also spending her time, right? So your story as someone that's a volunteer is really powerful, because if you're giving your time there and you're talking about it being the place that you want to be and that you're happy to give your time, it's something that other people resonate and they're looking for. No one wants to feel like their time is being wasted. No one wants to feel like they're not making a difference in that situation. So yes, issue-based organizations that support these values that you share, absolutely spend your time engaging and supporting whatever their mission or their project might be. Amy, go for it.
Hi, this question is related to working for candidates who are, let's say, working for like municipal level, or, you know, running for municipal level positions where it may be a nonpartisan election. So, you know, I, as a Democrat, have an interest in getting people elected who hold my values. But for example, I did volunteer for a local candidate, but they're not running in a partisan election. So I've gotten mixed message about whether, you know, I'll knock on the door and the person will say, well, just tell me, are they a Democrat or a Republican? And like, I've gotten mixed messages about whether or not we should be saying they are or are not. And, you know, as someone who has a vested interest in getting people who lean a certain way, I was wondering, how do we handle that? And related to it, how do you promote that or certain people to run when you don't have a partisan election?
Yeah, so that is a really great question, and nonpartisan elections can be a little tricky because it's not so black and white. And what I will say is, and I know folks have heard me say this, also all Democrats are not created equal, right? So you got to decide what issues are most important to you, because that is what's going to help guide that. If you're wanting to support or get involved with a nonpartisan race, I think it's up to you as someone who's willing to volunteer to know where they stand on some issues, right? Take the opportunity and time to write down what this is an absolute must. I don't want to work for anyone that doesn't support this. Write those feelings, values, decision-making factors down and ask those questions, right? Are you someone that supports pro-life or pro-choice, right? Often you want to know the answers to those questions. And sometimes, especially with nonpartisan candidates, it can be difficult because they feel like those issues don't necessarily affect the office that they're in. And so maybe they don't have an answer for it. But I think you as a volunteer and as someone that wants to support those values have to decide, what is that line for you? What does this person need to check off for me to be engaged? For me, that is them saying out loud that Black Lives Matter. It's them saying that people have a right to make decisions for their own body, that people should be able to love wherever they want to love, and that folks should earn a living wage, right? Those are my four. I need those four to be true before I will give my time, money, energy, or even work for a candidate, right? Those are the things that I demand are important to me. And I want the people that I support to do the same. So you've got to decide what you're for, or maybe there's more than four are for you, and ask those questions of those folks that might be there. But definitely engaging in those local elections is really important to what's happening directly around you. You know, campaigns that are 9 miles away are a lot more influential than campaigns that are 1,000 miles away for roles that are 1,000 miles away. So it's really important for you to know who's in there, what they're doing, and what they stand for. And you have to dig a little bit more when it's a nonpartisan race.
Oh, I'm sorry, if I could follow up.
Yeah.
I guess part of my question is, if I already know that of the candidate, like, are there actual rules in nonpartisan campaigns where you cannot say, like, I'll knock on a door and the person will kind of want the shorthand for me, because I'll go through their
Sure.
stances on issues and they'll be like, they just saw my mouth move and weren't really listening to me. And then they go, well, tell me, really, is this person a Democrat or a Republican?
I think again, that's the question you've got to ask the candidate that you're working for, right? Like, when people ask this question, how do you want me to answer it? What does that sound like? You know, maybe in this race, I am not allowed, you know, it's nonpartisan, but I identify as a Democrat, right? I've heard that a lot from people.
Okay,
I
so
think
you're allowed to say.
Yeah, you knowing the answer to that and checking with the campaign to make sure that that's the message that they want to move forward is super important. But that direction should come from the campaign team.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions that folks might have. This is really you all's time. I'm here to answer any other questions. The last slide that was up was building a motivating message, and we're talking about that. We're talking about the story of self. So we're doing that part right now, and that was my last slide. Other questions that folks have? Okay, if there aren't other questions, then what I will do is just show you all one more slide that I had as a backup, because I think it's important for everyone here to see, because everyone here has the ability to be escalated to be the next volunteer that's there. So attending an event or signing up to volunteer is step one. From there, canvassing once or phone banking once is 2. Becoming a 3-time-a-week canvasser or phone banker is another way. Beginning to serve as a canvas captain is another way. And then serving as a volunteer lead. Everyone here has the ability to move up this ladder of engagement and bring more people to it. You can swap out canvas for phone bank. You can swap out phone bank for hosting an event. Any of those things that we talked about are opportunities for people to really take that next step. But first, you've got to get people to do number one, right? Everyone here signed up and came to this conversation this evening. You can do that. Can you take the next step and lead something? Can you take the next step and recruit someone? Can you work yourself to being at the 5 level where a campaign is depending on you in that way? And I would just encourage folks to definitely do that piece. I'd love for you all to stay in touch. So here are some details here. Rosetta Okeson, please feel free to reach out. info@Mo Political Consulting is the best way to send it. If you send it directly to me, my inbox currently has 323 emails in it, so don't. But we are organized enough to have more people so that I can answer your questions or your requests or other opportunities. Definitely check out our website of candidates that we're supporting this cycle. We are fighting for some good folks. You all heard from Paula Brown on here tonight. Paula has been our candidate and our client since 2018. That was the seat that they told us that we couldn't flip, and it's blue and it's going to stay blue. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to chat with you all tonight. Please stay in touch. Our website is below. We do send out a newsletter. You're welcome to sign up for that. I promise we won't spam you. We only send an email once a week. And it's mostly just bragging on our cool candidates and opportunities for folks to get engaged and be a volunteer. And from time to time, we give away cool swag. So if you took our poll, we did a Juneteenth quiz on our social media today. Please fill that out. If you get the answers right, then you have an opportunity to win some free swag. So appreciate your time, your energy, your love for electing Democrats, for fighting in Missouri. Everybody pat yourself on the back, because this is hard work. And everyone would tell us that we should just leave and that we should quit, but we cannot, because no one is going to come save us. We're going to have to save ourselves. Thanks, y'all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rosetta. So we have some like Rosetta said, we have Paula Brown who's with us. I saw LaDonna Applebaum. It looks like she may have gotten back off again, but those are two great candidates who don't have primaries right now. So, I mean, if they have any information about any actions that they're doing, you know, we want to always continue to see great Democratic candidates elected and re-elected in the cases of Paula and LaDonna. So if either one of them have any information on actions that they're doing, they can feel free to send those to me, and I'll send those out to you all as best I can. But yeah, does anybody have any announcements for the group?
Well, I do if no one else does. What I'd like to do